Okay, next. Introduction to CAPWAP. CAPWAP is an IEEE standard protocol that enable WLC, yeah, to manage multiple AP and wireless LAN. Yeah. Okay. Based on WAPP, okay, but adds additional security with datagram transport layer security, DLTS. Encapsulate and forward WLAN or wireless LAN client traffic between AP access point and WLC or wireless LAN controller over tunnel using UDP, user datagram protocol ports 5046 and 5247. Operates over both IPv4 and also IPv6. IPv4 use protocol 17 and IPv6 use IP protocol 136. A cardboard split MAC concept does all functions normally performed by individual AP and distribute them between two functional components. First, AP MAC and wireless LAN controller MAC function. For the AP MAC beacon and probe response, okay, so and also it got packet acknowledgement and retransmission and frame queuing and packet prioritization and also MAC layer data encryption and decryption. And then for the wireless LAN controller MAC function, which is they got authentication function and then association and reassociation of roaming client and frame translation to other protocol and termination of 802.11 traffic on a wired interface. These are the functions for both architecture. Yeah. Okay, DTLS encryption. Okay, it's enabled by default to secure the CAPWAP control channel and encrypt all management and control traffic between AP and WAC. Data encryption is disabled by default and require a DTLS or Datagram Transport Layer Security license to be installed on the wireless wireless LAN controller WLC before it can be enabled on the AP. Flex Connect AP. So Flex Connects enable the configuration and control AP over one link. There are two modes of option for the Flex Connect AP. Connected mode and also second one is a standalone mode. For the WLC is a regional, yeah, which is for the wireless LAN controller. So the Flex AP has CAPWAP connectivity with the wireless LAN controller, yeah, through the CAPWAP tunnel. The wireless LAN controller perform all CAPWAP function. Standalone mode, this WLC or wireless LAN controller is unreachable. So the Flex Connects AP has lost CAPWAP connectivity with the wireless LAN controller. The Flex Connect AP can assume some of the WLC function or wireless LAN controller functions such as switching client data traffic locally and performing client authentication locally. 12.5 channel management. frequency channel saturation. If the demand for a specific wireless channel is too high, the channel may become oversaturated, degrading the quality of the communication. Channel saturation can be mitigated using techniques that use the channel more efficiently. First, D triple S. Yeah, D triple S stand for direct sequence spread. Yeah, spread spectrum. A modulation technique designed to spread a signal over a larger frequency band used by 802.11b devices to avoid interference from other devices using the same frequency, which is 2.4 gigahertz. And then for the next one, which is FHSS for frequency hopping spread spectrum. This what we call this channel, yeah, transmit radio signal by rapidly switching a carrier signal among many frequency channels. Sender and receiver must be synchronized to know which channel to jump to, used by the original 802.11 standard. Next, OFDM, which is stand for orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. So OFDM, a subset of the frequency division multiplexing, in which a single channel use multiple subchannel on adjacent frequencies. OFDM, yeah, orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, is used by a number of communication systems, including 802.11, AGN, and AC. Yeah. Channel selection. The 2.4 gigahertz band is subdivided into multiple channels, each allotted 22 megahertz bandwidth and separated from the next channel by 5 megahertz. A best practice for the 802.11 BGN wireless LAN requiring multiple AP is to use non-overlapping channels such as 1, 6, and 11. Yeah, all right. This. Okay, this is the diagram they are referring. Okay, for the 5 gigahertz, yeah, standard 801.11 for AN and AC, there are 24 channels. Yeah, 24 channels. Each channel is separated from the next channel by 20 megahertz. Okay, non-overlapping channel are 36, 48, and also 60. Yeah, 63, 38, this, and then 48, this, and then 60. Okay, so this is stop here. So this one, no interruption between non-overlapping. Yeah, non-overlapping. Just check here, non-overlapping. All right. Okay, plan a wireless LAN deployment. The number of users supported by a wireless LAN depend on the following. First, the geographical layout of the facility or building, whatever. Yeah. And then next, the number of bodies and devices that can fit in a space. And next, the data rate users expect. And then the use of non-overlapping channels by multiple APs and transmit power setting. Okay, when planning the location of AP, the approximate circular coverage area is important. Yeah, all right. This is the diagram. Okay, wireless LAN threats. Okay, this video will cover the following issue: interception of data, wireless intruder, DOS attacks or denial of service attacks, and ROP AP.
As we dive into local area networks, we need to describe the threats for our wireless LANs. And to get started, a wireless LAN is pretty much access point. If they have the appropriate credentials to associate with that access point, now these attacks generated by outsiders. Disgruntled employees, employees inside of your company, they don't even have to physically enter the workplace to access to the wireless local area network. There's wireless attacks, the intersection of data. Wireless data should be encrypted at all times to prevent it from people who shouldn't have access to that data. Wireless intruders are unauthorized users that are attempting to access network resources, and you know what? It can be deterred by using authentication. Denial of service attackers are difficult. They try to access wireless local area network services, compromise them accidentally or on purpose. We also have our rogue APs, which are unauthorized access points that are installed by either a well-intentioned user, someone just wanted to have an extra wireless network close by, or installed for malicious purposes, and they want to intercept people's traffic. Using management software, we should be able to detect those rogue access points. How do service attacks happen? Well, they can happen configuring devices. Configuration errors can disable a wireless network. For instance, an administrator simply disable the network with a disable button, or even an intruder with administrative privileges could intentionally disable the wireless local area network. DDoS attack is where a malicious user intentionally interferes with wireless communication. What that means is a malicious user has a goal, and their goal is to overwhelm the wireless access point to such a point can access it. There's tools for mobile devices for this, as well as specific radio frequency platforms. Accidental interference? Well, no, it can happen. Our wireless local area networks are prone to interference from other wireless devices. Cordless phones and even more. The 2.4 gigahertz radio frequency, that is the most prone wireless band for interference. So how do we minimize this risk to the wireless service? Well, we're going to harden our devices and keep our passwords secure. So in order to combat as fast as possible. And also, any changes that should always be done off hours, not during production times. A lot of this interference that can happen is in the 2.4 gigahertz band, so let's move our devices to the 5 gigahertz band. It's possible. Rogue access points are the detriment of wired network security. A rogue access point is an access point or wireless router that has been connected to a corporate network without the explicit authorization of the company. This is completely against company policy. With access to the physical premises can install a very inexpensive wireless router or access point and allow themselves access to the secure wire network resource. Once connected, these rogue APs can be used by an attacker to capture MAC addresses, to capture data packets, and even access to wired network resources. They can be used to launch man-in-the-middle attacks as well. To prevent the installation of these rogue access points, organizations have to configure wireless LAN controllers with rogue policies, as well as they should use monitoring software to actively monitor the spectrum for unauthorized access points. With a man position themselves between two legitimate entities in order to or modify the data that passes between those two entities. Now, there's many ways that a man-in-the-middle attack can be created. A popular way is to use the evil twin access point. This is where an attacker is going to use a rogue access point. Rogue access point with the same wireless SSID as a legitimate real access point nearby. Locations offering free Wi-Fi, such as some coffee shops and airports and restaurants, they're popular spots for this type of attack to occur. They usually have open authentication. With open authentication, a password is not when you're going to access the wireless network. Now, connecting wireless networks would see two access points offering wireless access. The people with the rogue access point would find the stronger signal and probably connect with it. Once that user traffic is sent through the rogue access point, that is captured and usually forwarded to the legitimate access point. The traffic returning back to the legitimate access point would then be sent backwards to the rogue access point to be captured by the malicious user and forwarded out to that poor, unsuspecting user. This allows the attackers to steal user passwords, to grab personal info, and access to the user's device. Defeating its man attacks depends on the sophistication of your wireless local area network infrastructure, and also the vigilance that you use to monitor activity on those wireless local area networks. It all starts with identifying devices on the network.
Okay, that's regarding wireless LAN threat. Wireless security overview. A wireless LAN is open to anyone within range of an AP and the appropriate credential to associate to it. Attack can be generated by outsiders, disgruntled employees, and even unintentionally by employees. Wireless networks are specifically susceptible to several threats, including the following issue, which is interception of data, wireless intruders, denial of service or DOS attack, and route AP. So DOS attack. Wireless DOS attack can be a result of the following: improper configured devices, malicious user intentionally interfering with the wireless communication, accidental interference. To minimize the risk of a DOS attack due to improperly configured devices and malicious attacks, harden all devices, keep passwords secure, create backups, and ensure that all configuration changes are incorporated of hours. Route access point. A route AP or route access point is an AP or wireless router that has been connected to a corporate network without explicit authorization and against corporate policy. Once connected, the route AP can be used by attacker to capture MAC addresses, capture data packets, gain access to the network resources, or launch a man-in-the-middle attacks. Personal network hotspot could also be used as a route AP. For example, a user with secure network access enable their authorized Windows host to become a Wi-Fi AP or access point. To prevent the installation of route AP, organization must configure a wireless LAN controller with route AP policies and use monitoring software to actively monitor the radio spectrum for unauthorized AP. Okay, man-in-the-middle attack or MITM attack. The hacker is positioned in between two legitimate entities in order to read or modify the data that passes between the two parties. A popular wireless MITM or man-in-the-middle attack is called the evil twin AP attack, where an attacker introduces a route AP and configure it with the same SSID as a legitimate AP. So defeating a MITM attack begin with identifying legitimate devices on the wireless LAN. To do this, user must be authenticated. After all of the legitimate devices are known, the network can be monitored for abnormal devices or traffic. Next, 12.7 secure wireless LAN. So this video will shows about the secure wireless LAN regarding SSID clocking, MAC address filtering, and authentication and encrypted system for open authentication and share key authentication.
Wireless signals can travel through walls, ceilings, and floors of your office building or your home. Without extreme security measures, this network can be as open as a wire network jack on the outside of your building. So let's talk about some of the ways that we can secure our wireless local area networks. Two of the options that are from the early 802.11 wireless phase would be using SSID cloaking as well as MAC address filtering. Some wireless access points and wireless routers allow you to disable the SSID, which means if a wireless client does happen to make its way close enough to your wireless signal, they still have to manually SSID. Even though a wireless client receives a strong enough signal and may know the SSID of the wireless network, they can still be manually permitted or blocked from accessing the wireless network because of their MAC address. A wireless administrator can specifically permit or deny a wireless client from accessing the wireless network by using a list of approved or denied physical MAC addresses. Although SSID cloaking and MAC address filtering will stop most of those wireless clients that shouldn't be able to join your network, it won't stop all of them. Our crafty intruders can still easily discover the SSIDs at your access points, even if your access point is set to not broadcast it. And also MAC address filtering, crafty intruders can spoof their MAC address and still gain access to the wireless network. So the best way to actually secure a wireless network is using authentication and encryption systems. We have two types of authentication that were introduced with the 802.11 standard. We have open system authentication and shared key. With open system authentication, this is perfect for internet access in a cafe or a hotel or even a remote area. With open authentication, your wireless client can easily connect to the wireless network without having to use a password. With shared key authentication, there are mechanisms such as WAP, WPA2, and WPA3 to authenticate and also encrypt data between the wireless client and the access point. The concern here is that the password must be pre-shared between both parties to connect to the network. Within the shared key authentication methods category, four different techniques involved. We have WEP, wire equivalent privacy. Sounds great, but this is one of the original 802.11 specifications, and this was designed to secure wireless data using a static key. What that means, it's not very secure, and WEP is not recommended. It should never be used. The next one is WPA, which is Wi-Fi protected access. And Wi-Fi protected access was based off of the original WEP standard. It secures data using a stronger encryption algorithm, but still is not the best way to go. WPA2 is the current industry standard for securing our wireless networks. This uses AES encryption, advanced encryption standard. It's currently considered the strongest encryption protocol. Last, we've got our WPA3, which is our latest and greatest security method. It disallows outdated legacy protocols and uses PMF frames, protected management frames. Devices with WPA3 using that readily available at this time. Along with our authentication, encryption is the method of being able to protect our data. Even if an intruder has captured encrypted data, they still would not be able to decipher it in a reasonable amount of time. WPA and WPA2 standards use the following two encryption protocols. We have TKIP and we have AES. TKIP is used by WPA and it provides support for legacy wireless local area network equipment. Now, TKIP addressed the original flaws of WEP, wire equivalency, but TKIP still is not as strong as AES. AES is the encryption method used by WPA2. It's the preferred method since it's far stronger encryption. Now, when data is encrypted, you have to really capture that data and break through the encryption to the original data. So what should we use deploying a house wireless LAN? First off, we're going to WPA2 authentication. We want the strongest authentication, WPA2 using AES encryption. However, we have two choices for WPA2 authentication. We have personal and we have devices using a pre-shared key. Our wireless clients, whether they be tablets or smartphones, players, or TVs, will use the exact same wireless password as any other client in the house. There's no special server needed to deploy WPA2 Personal. With WPA2 Enterprise, however, this is where you have a radius server, a remote authentication dial-in service. This server is going to be set up, but it does provide you a great amount of security. On this server, you have users configured. These users will have a username. This radius server would be consulted by any wireless infrastructure device the user tries to connect. If a person on the laptop comes up to the wireless access point of the router will consult the radius server to make sure its credentials are correct. WPA2 Enterprise was designed for enterprise environments. So how crazy can it get? Deploying a radius setup is not too crazy. It's just getting some of the basics done. When you do authentication in the enterprise and you have a radius server, we can make sure that our wireless access point of the wireless router can reach the radius server. And that means our wireless access point of the wireless router has to know the radius server. Also, because radius is running on the server itself, our wireless access point of the router has to be able to target the numbers that the service is reaching on the radius server. The common port numbers are 1812 for radius authentication and 1813 for radius accounting. This can also operate using ports 1645 and 1646. On top of that, should have been asked, have a username and password and shared key. The wireless router or access shared key configured to be the same key configured on the server. As requests from our wireless router access that server to ask about passwords. We want to make sure that we have these legitimate sources of requests. So regardless of wireless six of
All right. Okay. So that's the secure video for the wireless LAN, yeah. Okay, SSID clocking and MAC address filtering to address the threats, yeah, of keeping wireless intruders out and protecting data. Two early security features were used are still available on most routers and APs. SSID clocking. AP and some wireless router allow the SSID beacon frame to be disabled. Wireless client must be manually configured with the SSID to connect to the networks. And for the MAC address filtering, an administrator can manually permit or deny client wireless access based on their physical MAC address. Sorry, physical MAC hardware address. In the figure, the router is configured to permit two MAC addresses. Devices with different MAC addresses will not be able to join the 2.4 GHz wireless LAN. Original authentication method for 802.11. The best way, to secure a wireless network is to use authentication and encryption system. Two types of authentication were introduced with the original 802.11 standard. First, open system authentication. So no password required, typically used to provide free internet access in public area like cafe, airport, and hotels. Client is responsible for providing security such as through an VPN. Another way is use a share key authentication, which is provide mechanism such as WEP, WPA, WPA2 version 2 or WPA version 3 to authenticate and encrypt data between a wireless client and AP. However, the password must be pre-shared between both parties to connect. share key authentication method. There are currently 4 share key, 4 share key authentication techniques available. Okay, as shown in the table below. First, WEP, which is wired equivalent privacy. So the original 802.11 specification designed to secure the data using the reverse cipher 4 RC4 encryption method with the static key. WEP no longer recommended and should never be used. This is WEP. And then next we got the WPA or Wi-Fi protected access, a Wi-Fi alliance standard that use WEP but secure the data with a much stronger temporal key integrity protocol TKIP encryption algorithm. TKIP changes the key of each packet, making it much more difficult to hack. And then for the WPA version 2 or WPA 2, it used advanced encryption standard, which is AES for encryption. AES is currently considered the strongest encryption protocol. And for WPA 3, this is the next generation of Wi-Fi security. All WPA3 enable devices use the latter security method. This allow outdated legacy protocol and require the use of protected management frame, PMS. All right. So authenticated a home user. Home router typically have two choices for authentication, WPA and WPA2. With WPA2, having two authentication method, personal and enterprise. Personal is intended for home or small office network. Users authenticate using a pre-shared key PSK. Wireless clients authenticate with the wireless router using a pre-shared password. No special authentication server is required. And for the enterprise, intended for enterprise network, require a remote authentication dial-in user service or radius. So radius authentication server. The device must be authenticated by the radius server, and then user must authenticate using 802.1x standard, which uses the extensible authentication protocol EAP for authentication. Yeah, right. Radius, remote authentication dial-in user services, radius. So WPA and WP2, include two encryption protocol. First, temporal key integrity protocol. Second, advanced encryption standard, AES. For TKIP or temporal key integrity protocol used by WPA and provides support for legacy wireless LAN equipment. Makes use of WEP but encrypts the layer 2 payload using TKIP or temporal key integrity protocol. And for the AES, which is the second protocol used by WPA2 and use the counter cipher mode with block chaining message authentication code protocol or CCMP that allows the destination host to recognize if the encrypted and not encrypted bit has been not. Authentication in the enterprise. Enterprise security mode choice required an authentication, authorization, and accounting or AAA radius server. Three pieces of information are required: radius server IP address of the server, a UDP port numbers, which is UDP ports 1812 for radius authentication, 1813 for radius accounting, but can also operate using UDP port 1645 and 1640. 6. And then for the share key, used to authenticate the AP with the radius server. Notes. User authentication and authorization is handled by 802.1x standard, which provide a central server-based authentication of an user. WAP version 3 or WAP 3. Because WAP 2 is no longer considered secured, WPA 3 is recommended when available. WPA 3 includes 4 features. WPA personal, brute force attack by using simultaneous authentication of equal SAE, and WPA enterprise use 802.11x/EAP authentication. However, it requires the use of 162-bit cryptographic suite and eliminate the mixing of the security protocol for previous 802.11 standard. And for the next, which is open network, does not use any authentication, however, use opportunistic wireless encryption, OWE, to encrypt all wireless traffic. And then for the IoT onboarding, use the device provision protocol, DPP, to quickly onboard IoT devices. All right, so module practice and quiz. Okay, so I think that's all for this. And thank you for watching and listening. Bye bye.